Welcome to Congress in Context. We're diving deep today into a really intense and I think pivotal day on Capitol Hill, September 11th, 2025.
Yeah, it wasn't just, another day of legislation. It felt like a real intersection of policy and, frankly, raw emotion.
Absolutely.
We saw significant votes, immigration, defense, but all of it happened against this backdrop of shared grief.
Exactly.
Mm.
So our mission today, as always, is to kind of cut through the noise. We want to pull out the most important insights, maybe some surprising facts from what Congress was up to.
Right. Give you a clear, balanced look at what happened and, crucially, why it matters to you.
Yeah, how these decisions might ripple out. Think of it as your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. We'll try and keep you hooked. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
First up, the House. They passed a major piece of legislation, one that's definitely stirred up a lot of debate. The Stop Illegal Entry Act of 2025, H.R. 3486.
That's the one. Championed by Mr. Knott from North Carolina and Mrs. Bice of Oklahoma. And it really focuses on significantly increasing penalties for people who illegally enter or re-enter the U.S. after being removed.
Especially, I gather, if they have prior felony convictions.
Exactly. That's a key trigger. This isn't just a minor tweak,
So what are we talking about practically? What are some of the core provisions? What would actually change?
Well, it's a pretty substantial shift. The bill proposes mandatory prison time, not less than 5 years, potentially up to life, for any non-citizen who enters illegal, like not at a checkpoint or evading inspection, if they're later convicted of a crime that carries more than a year's sentence. And beyond that, it really ramps up penalties for illegal reentry itself.
Ramps them up how?
Okay, so someone unlawfully reentering after they've already been removed could face up to 10 years. That jumps to 15 years if they have, say, 3 or more misdemeanor convictions involving drugs or crimes against a person.
15 years.
Yeah, and there's even a new federal charge. Minimum 10 years, could be life, for someone convicted of any felony, deported, and then caught trying to re-enter.
Wow. That's a very clear, forceful stance on enforcement. What were the main arguments from the people pushing this bill, the proponents?
They really framed it as providing critical new tools. That was the phrase used. Tools to combat what they called illegal immigrant criminals.
Right.
Mr. Knott specifically said the aim was to catch people before they rob, rape, or murder Americans. He stressed that these higher penalties would kick in for illegal reentry after deportation or a U.S. felony conviction.
And Mrs. Bice?
She echoed that, talking about discouraging illegal entry and keeping criminal aliens out. She cited figures like over 10 million illegal entries under the previous administration.
Okay.
And claimed these included, quote, countless numbers of murderers, rapists, child traffickers, smugglers. She also pointed out that apparently 400 people on terrorist watch lists were caught by Customs and Border Patrol.
Those are strong claims. To back that up, did they bring specific examples to the floor to show the urgency?
Oh, absolutely. That's a common tactic, right, to make it real. Mr. Schmidt of Kansas talked about the 2016 case of Pablo Antonio Serrano-Vitorino.
I think I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, he was deported back in 2004 after a terrorist threat conviction, apparently re-entered, and then killed 5 people in Missouri and Kansas. Very tragic.
Definitely.
And Mrs. Bice and Mr. Kennedy from Utah mentioned others, too. A Mexican national deported 3 times, later sentenced for drug trafficking. A Guatemalan removed twice, later charged with aggravated sexual assault of a child. Another Mexican national deported twice, charged with murder in Utah just a week later. And they even mentioned a gang member from Mexico who had illegally entered 26 times.
26 times. So they're using these really striking anecdotes to argue the current system isn't working.
Exactly, to underline the need for this bill.
Okay, those are powerful arguments for stricter enforcement. But a bill like this, it never goes unopposed. What did the other side say?
No, the opposition was just as vocal. Mr. Raskin from Maryland, for example, he called the bill, quote, too punitive, way too expensive, and ultimately ineffective.
Ineffective. Why?
Well, he pointed out that, according to him, roughly half of the people who have been arrested by ICE have no violent criminal history and no criminal history other than being undocumented. And he argued that, existing law already has harsh sentences for illegal reentry, up to 20 years in some cases.
So opponents are essentially saying, wait a minute, the tools are there, and maybe more prison time isn't the answer, plus the cost.
Precisely. The cost argument was big. Mr. Raskin questioned locking people up for 5, 10, 15 years in U.S. prisons, costing $150 and in many cases $200 a day, when they could just be removed.
Right. Deportation versus long-term incarceration.
Exactly. And Ms. Jayapal from Washington State, she jumped on that too. She cited ICE's own data saying 65% of people in immigration detention have zero criminal convictions.
65%.
Yeah. She basically suggested the bill was, quote, a ploy to give private, for-profit prison companies more money.
Okay, so pushback on the cost, the effectiveness, and who benefits. Were there broader concerns about the whole approach?
There were. Mr. Correa from California brought up the economics. He said jobs are a big magnet, right?
Sure.
And that labor shortages often lead employers to hire undocumented workers. His point was, we need comprehensive reform, legal pathways, not just penalties.
Address the root causes, essentially.
Kind of. And both Mr. Raskin and Ms. Jayapal also brought up mandatory minimum sentences. They pointed out that legal experts often criticize those.
Yeah, that's been a debate for years.
Right, and they even mentioned that some mandatory minimums were rolled back under the First Step Act, signed by President Trump back in 2018. They cited studies suggesting it's the certainty of being caught, not how severe the sentence is, that really deters crime.
Interesting point. So a really clear divide on the philosophy here. What was the final vote in the House on H.R. 3486?
It passed. The final tally was 226 yeas to 197 nays. Rule number 264 for those tracking at home.
Okay, so that moves to the Senate. Now, shifting gears slightly, still in the House. They also dealt with something related to appropriations, right? For military construction and the VA H.R. 3944.
Yeah, specifically a motion to instruct conferees.
Explain that a bit. What does that mean, instruct conferees?
It's basically a procedural move. One chamber, in this case, the House, formally tells its members who are going to negotiate with the Senate on a bill.
The conferees.
Right, the conferees. Tells them what policies or positions the House wants them to push for in those negotiations, sort of like sending them off with instructions. This one was offered by Ms. DeLauro from Connecticut.
Okay, and did the House agree to those instructions?
No, actually. It was really close, though. The motion was rejected. 211 yeas to 213 nays. Just 2 votes.
Wow.
But even though that specific motion failed, they still appointed a bipartisan group of conferees to go ahead and work out the differences with the Senate on that appropriations bill.
So the process moves forward, just without those specific instructions attached.
Exactly.
Got it. Let's also quickly touch on the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. That huge annual defense policy bill. Always a big deal.
Always. Monumental, really. In the House, Mr. Shreve of Louisiana announced that 2 of his amendments got added unanimously.
Oh, what were they about?
One was for a big review of the physical and cybersecurity of critical defense infrastructure. The other was for a strategy to counter Iranian and Hezbollah influence down in Latin America.
Okay, defense posture issues.
Right. And Mr. Guthrie of Kentucky praised the overall House bill as a generational investment in defense, highlighting things like pay raises for service members and measures to strengthen border security, which often gets tied into the NDAA these days.
It does. And while the House was doing this, the Senate was working on its own version, S-2296. Any highlights there?
Yeah, always interesting to see the details. The Senate side included a notice about Finland wanting to buy over 400 advanced air-to-air missiles AMRAAMs, costing over $1 billion.
Big sale.
Yeah. And there was also a report about enhancing a previous missile sale to the UK, adding a specific secure communication device. That part was actually classified secret.
Okay, so some high-level defense tech dealings.
Definitely. And, lots of other amendments being introduced, too. Things like denying entry to officials involved in forcibly repatriating Uyghurs, new rules for notifying about detainee transfers, even sentencing reform for crack cocaine offenses. It's a real grab bag sometimes.
The NDAA always touches so many different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's pivot now to the Senate itself, because there was a major procedural fight brewing there, wasn't there, over nominations?
Oh, yeah. This has been simmering for a while, and the frustration was really spilling out. Senator Thune, the majority leader, he flat out said, Democrats have flat out broken the Senate confirmation process.
Strong words. What was his evidence?
He claimed that over 7 months into the Trump administration, not one civilian nominee had been confirmed by unanimous consent or voice vote. Not one.
0 compared to
Compared to the same point in the Biden administration where he said 76 civilian nominees had been confirmed that way, he called the current situation a petty partisanship.
So this isn't just about political points. It's actually blocking the administration from getting its team in place, right? How are Republicans trying to fix that?
Well, fix is one word for it. They were pushing a resolution, S-Res 377. It's being called the Lankford Resolution.
And what would that do?
It aimed to allow for en bloc consideration, basically voting on a whole group of nominees at once.
Ah, package deal.
Kind of, but specifically excluding the really top jobs, high-level executive posts, Article 3 judges.
Yeah.
It was meant as a way to get the lower and mid-level folks confirmed, despite the gridlock.
A procedural workaround, basically. So like a chess match. What did the Democrats say about this move to change the rules?
Well, Senator Schumer, the minority leader, his public comments focused more on appropriations, fighting high costs, especially health care. But Senator Schatz expressed disappointment.
Disappointment about what?
He said a bipartisan deal on changing the nomination rules had been achingly close, but then it just fell apart. Senator Merkley also chimed in, acknowledging the process is entirely broken, but he sounded wary of using a, quote, supernova nuclear option to force rule changes.
The nuclear option language always comes up in these fights. So lots of maneuvering, lots of debate. What actually happened? What was the outcome?
It got pretty dramatic. There was a sequence of votes. First, a vote to invoke cloture, to end debate on that Lankford resolution, S-Res 377. That failed.
Okay, so it looked like it was dead.
For a moment. But then they voted to reconsider that failed vote, and that passed.
Procedural gymnastics.
Exactly. And then came the really crucial part. The Senate voted to overturn a ruling from the chair about the vote threshold needed for cloture on these kinds of resolutions dealing with nominations en bloc.
They overturned the presiding officer. Wow, what did that achieve?
It effectively set a new precedent. It established that you only need a simple majority, 51 votes, to invoke cloture on these specific types of resolutions, not the usual 60.
That's huge. The nuclear option, basically, for this specific purpose.
Pretty much. And under that new simple majority threshold, they immediately voted again to end debate on S-Res 377, and this time it succeeded.
Okay, that is a massive shift in Senate procedure. What does this actually mean going forward for you, the listener? How does this impact things?
It's significant. It really could change how the Senate confirms nominees. It means that starting Monday, September 15th, the Senate will vote on actually adopting S-Res 377.
And if that passes?
If it passes, it could seriously speed up the confirmation process for potentially hundreds of nominees, get them through much faster. They also scheduled a vote for Monday on Stephen Mirren's nomination to the Federal Reserve Board, so Monday is going to be a big test of this new landscape.
Definitely something to watch. But even with all this legislative action, all this procedural drama, we have to remember the date. September 11th, 2025. It cast a pretty heavy shadow, didn't it?
It absolutely did. The day started with the chaplain's prayer, reflecting on, quote, the horrific moments of 9/11, but also mentioning the senseless violence of the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the simultaneous attack on high schoolers in Colorado, even just yesterday.
Right, so grief upon grief.
Yeah, it set a really solemn tone. And several members, Mr. Thompson from Pennsylvania, Mr. Vindman, Mr. Keene of New Jersey, Mr. Muser, they gave really heartfelt tributes.
For the 9/11 anniversary.
Exactly. Commemorating the 24th anniversary, remembering the lives lost, the first responders, but also talking about the nation's resilience and unity back then.
That unity feels distant sometimes now. And the mention of the Charlie Kirk assassination, that clearly hit hard too and sparked a lot of intense discussion.
It really did. And what's striking, is how members on both sides condemned the violence, but often framed it very differently. Well, Republicans like Mr. Stutzman and Mr. Moran, while they mourned Kirk, they really emphasized his role in, quote, standing for his faith and engaging in open and honest debate. They often use the word martyr to describe it.
Martyr, okay.
And Mr. Moore of North Carolina, he explicitly linked it to what he called a disturbing trend in political violence in our country, encouraged by the radical left.
So tying it directly to political opponents.
Yeah.
But the condemnation of violence wasn't just one-sided, right?
Oh, not at all. Senator Schumer strongly condemned the heinous murder of Charlie Kirk and the school attack in Colorado. He said, political violence is the enemy of democracy, and we have an obligation on all sides to fight it at every turn.
A call for universal condemnation.
Yes. And so Warnock echoed that, adding something interesting. He said, we must condemn political violence, but we must also condemn hate and hate speech. You cannot condemn one without condemning the other.
That adds another layer. So, okay, there's shared grief, shared condemnation of violence, but it sounds like some of the discussion still spiraled into more partisan territory?
It did. You really got a sense of the raw emotions. Representative Al Green of Texas gave this long, very passionate speech. He condemned Kirk's assassination, absolutely.
Right.
But he also sharply criticized what he called incisive commentary emanating from the highest office. And he specifically referenced past rhetoric from President Trump. He even called out CNN, accusing them of treating words like racism as somehow incisive while allowing anti-Semitism to be confronted directly.
Okay, so broadening the critique quite a bit.
Yeah, and then he pivoted even further. He accused the president of sanctioning collective punishment, ethnic cleansing, and genocide in Gaza. And he labeled Texas redistricting as racist. His point seemed to be that Congress shouldn't just manage racism, it should actively fight it.
Wow. That's covering a lot of ground and connecting dots in a very charged way. It really raises a tough question, doesn't it? How do we as a country navigate these incredibly deep disagreements and intense feelings in our politics, especially when events like these happen?
It's the central challenge, isn't it? And beyond those really big legislative fights and the emotionally charged debates, there were other important things happening too, affecting people's daily lives.
Like what?
Well, Miss Dean from Pennsylvania spoke out against cuts to SNFP, the Food Assistance Program. She mentioned 75,000 people struggling with hunger just in her district.
It's a concrete impact.
Definitely. And Miss Salinas from Oregon highlighted mental health needs, especially in rural areas and among farmers, pointing to high suicide rates and criticizing proposed cuts to Medicaid.
So focusing on social safety nets and health.
Right. And on the foreign policy side, Mrs. Omar from Minnesota introduced a resolution trying to terminate hostilities against Venezuela. She questioned the legal basis for recent actions and really emphasized Congress's power over war decisions.
Asserting congressional authority there, and economically.
Mr. Durbin of Illinois introduced a bill, S-2781, aiming to set a national cap on interest rates for consumer credit, a national usury rate of 36%.
That could affect a lot of people with credit cards or loans.
Potentially, yeah. And meanwhile, Miss Cantwell from Washington State voiced really serious concerns about the Hanford site nuclear waste cleanup.
The cleanup in Washington State. What were her concerns?
Delays and cost increases. She called finishing that cleanup a legal and moral obligation and specifically warned against taking shortcuts, saying past attempts by other administrations ended up costing more and just delaying the work. She really emphasized sticking to the science and the existing agreements on the project.
Okay, so a lot happening across many different fronts. Taking all this whole deep dive, what does it tell us about what's coming next?
Well, for the legislation we talked about, H.R. 3486, the Stop Illegal Entry Act, it passed the House, now it goes to the Senate. Expect probably even more intense debate there, given the divisions we saw.
No easy path.
Probably not. The Military Construction VA Appropriations Bill, that's now in conference committee, they'll try to hammer out a compromise between the House and Senate versions. And the Senate is still actively working on its NDAA, lots of amendments still in play.
And that big Senate procedural change on nominations.
That's the one to really watch in the immediate term. That new precedent allowing a simple majority for cloture on certain nomination resolutions, it could significantly speed things up. Those votes scheduled for Monday, September 15th on adopting SRES 377, and on the Mirren nomination for the Fed, they'll be the first big test.
A real indicator of how things might work going forward.
Exactly. This week really painted a picture, didn't it? Congress grappling with these huge, deep-seated issues, border security, defense, how they even operate, all while dealing with national mourning and these incredibly high political tensions.
It really did. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. We hope this helps you feel more plugged into what Congress has been up to. But how can you, the listener, dig even deeper and maybe make your voice heard?
Great question. First off, all the bills we mentioned, H.R. 3486, H.R. 3944, the others, they're all public. Congress.gov is a fantastic resource. You can find the full text, track where they are in the process, see amendments, and even how your own representatives voted.
Congress.gov. Easy enough.
Yep. And if you want to share your thoughts, finding contact info for your House rep and your senators is easy too. Just go to house.gov and senate.gov. Emails, phone numbers, it's all there.
Okay, contact info sorted. How about tracking what's coming up?
Keep an eye on Congress.gov again, and also committee websites. They list upcoming hearings, markups, votes. Especially watch for those key Senate votes on Monday the 15th related to SRES 377 and the Mirror nomination.
Good catch.
And finally, engagement goes beyond just calling or emailing. Consider checking out local civic groups, maybe attending a town hall if your rep holds one, or even just participating in respectful online discussions in your community. Fostering informed dialogue matters.
It really does. So thinking about everything we've discussed today,
Mm-hmm.
the intense debates on immigration, defense, the Senate rules, the calls for unity right alongside these really stark partisan divides. It leaves us with a question, doesn't it? What does it truly mean for us as citizens to engage in that vigorous exchange of ideas that democracy needs without, tipping over into what some people today call politically motivated barbarity? Where's that line, and what's our role in holding it?
That's a really profound thought. It challenges all of us, I think, to consider how we participate, how we talk to each other, how we listen.
Something for you to definitely mull over. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive for Congress in Context.
Hope it was valuable.
We certainly hope it provided some useful insights, and we look forward to having you with us for our next one.